That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. Or is it? Because as you'll find, things are not what they seem to be. At least in I'm Thinking of Ending Things, the third film directed by Charlie Kaufman, which will be available to stream on Netflix as of September 4th, 2020. Mr. Kaufman, of course, was originally known as a very innovative and idiosyncratic screenwriter who penned Spike Jonze's early works like Being John Malkovich, Adaptation. He wrote Michel Gondry's favorite Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and then of course has broken out as a director on his own, notably with his debut Synecdoche, New York, starring Philip Seymour Hoffman, and then the stop-motion animated film Anomalisa in 2015. And here we are with what I think is one of the most intriguing and kind of difficult to talk about films of the year if you haven't seen it. But I enjoyed it, and I've really enjoyed thinking and speaking on it since then.
Yeah, it's excellent.
Yeah, it's overwhelming.
Well, here, let me try to tell the basic story, which is very basic because this film is much more complex than the actual plot.
Yes.
But we find a couple. Mm-hmm. The man is played by
Jesse Plemons.
And the woman is played by
Jessie Buckley. The Jessies.
Jessie Squared. Mm-hmm. Okay. So Jessie Squared are a new couple. Mm-hmm. They have only been dating for about 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. And he has asked her to meet his parents. Mm-hmm. So they take the drive. It's a cold winter day. They're on the highway. The first 20 minutes of the film is them driving to his parents' house. And they have a very interesting conversation that runs the gamut. But while they're having a conversation, we're also privy to her internal dialogue, which is often pointed with the phrase,
I'm thinking of ending things.
I'm thinking of ending things. And things being her relationship with him. Mm-hmm. So they finally arrive at his parents' home. And he's acting strange. He doesn't want to go in the house immediately. We see his parents up on the second floor waving at them. So there's some tension. The film is marketed as sort of like a drama horror film.
Oh, well, it's based on the 2016 novel by Iain Reid, which was classified as a literary thriller. And I think that you could make an argument for this being an existential horror film.
Sure, but if you're coming at it thinking that it's a horror film, then the opening, mm-hmm. and when we are introduced to the parents, it all sort of feeds into that. Mm-hmm. So Toni Collette is the mom, and the dad is played by
David Thewlis.
And they are interesting. Mm-hmm. There's something kind of off. There are a lot of little details that I'm sure, I could watch this film probably 4 times and still find new little things. But there are weird little details about the house and about the way the boyfriend's acting. There's a door down to a basement and he's insisting she not go down in the basement. And we see scratches on the door as if someone were trying to get in. Mm-hmm. Then we start dinner. And that's a very interesting dinner, mm-hmm. Because it's kind of the mom talking about her son and the dad trying to get to know the daughter. There's a really interesting exchange because at one point, the girlfriend says she's an artist, mm-hmm. and the dad says, well, I don't like abstract art, this whole long thing. And then she shows him some of her art and he's asking questions. I thought that was really effective, but it sort of sets up this awkward tension between everyone. Mm-hmm. Things for the audience take a turn though, because we cut to the next sort of shot and Toni Collette's appearance has changed. Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like your eyes deceiving you, because when you first see Thewlis on the stairs when they come in, he appears much older than he is at the dinner table. But that's very subtle. But soon all of those changes start coming kind of fast and loose.
So throughout the time that she's at the house, the appearance of the mom and the dad change. They age, de-age, mm-hmm. their hair changes. The girlfriend keeps saying she needs to leave, mm-hmm. because she has work to do in the morning. And her excuse for why she needs to leave changes, but that's sort of the theme throughout the day, is that she needs to be able to get back home that night. So obviously we're thinking something's going to happen that she can't leave, but then they do end up leaving. Mm-hmm. So on the drive back, it's, dark, there's a blizzard, and the boyfriend says basically he wants a blizzard from like a Dairy Queen type establishment.
In this fictional Oklahoma town called Tulsey town.
Right. So they stop, but he's acting very strange. Like, I don't want to talk to these girls because I went to high school with them and they can be mean. So the girlfriend goes to talk and they're being very strange. One of the girls is sort of trying to send her a message, like to be afraid and to not leave.
Or you don't. She has a cryptic line like, you don't have to. You don't have to.
You don't have to go.
You have to go. Just because go where, and
anyway,
they're basically implicating that one of the themes, of course, is time being not fixed.
Right. Again, it's feeding into sort of this dread and this horror, but we're already like past the hour mark at this point. So they leave the Dairy Queen, and as they're driving back, there's some tension. Like, they kind of get into an argument. She's frustrated. Neither of them are eating their blizzards, which happen to be ginormous. So he's saying, like, we need to dispose of these. I don't want them leaking them in my car. So he pulls off into like a side road, and she panics. Like, why are we driving down this like abandoned road? He's saying, like, I'm going to like my high school. They do end up getting there. So again, we're thinking like, oh my God, he's taking her to a remote location to do something. But he does end up at his high school. He goes to throw the blizzard away, comes back. They start to make out a little bit when he sees an image of a man. And he is startled, and then he says, I have to confront this man because he shouldn't be looking at us, which is obviously stupid. She gets upset, follows him into the school.
And that man is the janitor at the school that we have received snippets of throughout the rest of the film.
The man that the boyfriend thinks he sees is an old man who we see the very opening scene of the film while they're driving. It volleys back and forth between the boyfriend and girlfriend and this old man driving who's listening to Bible verses. But anyway, the boyfriend goes into the school. The girlfriend panics, like, what the fuck are you doing? So she follows him in. The mood changes because she kind of attempts to find refuge. Like, she's just kind of like kneeling in a corner. She sees the janitor. She asks if he knows her boyfriend. He doesn't. And then we cut to an auditorium. And we find the boyfriend performing a song from Oklahoma. And his mom is on stage. And everyone in the audience, many we recognize.
And they all have this theatrical old age makeup on.
Right, so they're all aged, but it's meant to look bad because it's like theater makeup. And he performs this song, and when he ends, everyone applauds. The end. Yeah. So it sounds weird. It's hard to describe, but I thought
Well, let's start. So the preview makes it look like Get Out for white people.
Mixed with Hereditary.
Mixed with Hereditary. Toni Collette and her performance, the snippets you get from that preview at least would make you think so. But it really isn't like that at all.
No.
It's very much an art house film, and very much in keeping with cinema of dread per se, like think of old Bergman or Polanski films. And also probably the bleakest film from Kaufman, because both Synecdoche and Anomalisa had moments that were poignant. They had very cynical edges to them, but they had some very empathetic moments in them as well.
So when we finished the film, I took it as like an impression of when people say, like, at the end of their life, when they say their life flashed before them. That's how I took this. That we're getting from the man's perspective.
Well, at first you think it's Jessie Buckley, who may or may not be named Lucy because he references... This is a very hyper-literate film, by the way. As a poem there's this poem I love from Wordsworth named Lucy, and she's like me, and then later she's called Amy, and what she does for a job. Everything is contradicted. And because this is supposed to be, I think, speaking about time and memory and perspective and perception and how all of those things are suspect depending on who you're aligning with. The conversation about abstract art, I think, is a really nice key because David Thewlis' character is like, well, how do you know that the artist was sad while painting this? She's like, well, what do you think? What, as the participant in this art...
Well, no, he says, oh, like, Toni Collette's character says, oh, like, she references a piece of art with like a farm and then a woman or a man standing in it looking sad. And then he goes, well, how would I know if it's a sad scene if I don't see the person being sad? And she goes, well, you're the person. You're looking at
right.
it. How do you
That's
feel?
what I'm saying.
Right.
She said that is a key in implicating the participant in the artistic process, the audience. Like, what are you bringing to it as well? And how is that fluctuating interpretation? There's, you could say this is kind of split up into 4 distinct-ish parts based on what's happening, but in the car ride that's supposedly taking them home, where Buckley's character changes drastically, there's a really great moment where they're talking about the Cassavetes film, A Woman Under the Influence, and she is smoking and takes on this affect, which is basically reciting, in completion, Pauline Kael's very disparaging pan of that Cassavetes film. Where was I going with that?
I don't know, but I was going to finish what I was saying, and I think you should also do the same, which is like, what did you think this film meant?
I think, so that's what I was saying. We think, well, there's so much pressure to get everything out. The Buckley, we think we're aligned with the Buckley film, but drastically this kind of changes, and it doesn't give us any answers, but I think we're supposed to assume that the janitor is Jake, who's also the only character whose name doesn't fluctuate. And all the little hints we get about Jake when we think he's kind of, when we think he's kind of an antagonist.
Are you saying you think the movie is from his perspective?
I think the end of the movie, I think we're supposed to, but this is just my interpretation, what I'm bringing to it, is
well, that's the way I'm asking you. So, yeah, so you think it's from his perspective.
I think potentially the movie is leading us there. But everybody should have, as Michael Haneke says, everybody should have their own interpretation anyway of film, of a piece of art. But I think it's him. I think he may or not be that janitor. And as we were talking about the fluctuating details we get about the Buckley character, she's representative of all the women he's either been fascinated with or dated throughout his life. And if you think about the phrase, I'm thinking of ending things, maybe this is him, it could be hinting at suicidal ideations. And it's a melange of memory, of a person's memories, of a person's fantasies, of what they wanted to do, what it could have been. All Jesse Plemons' little hints about Buckley quotes Betty Davis, like getting old is not for sissies, and he's like, well, we can't use the word sissy now. And David Thewlis refers to Billy Crystal in Forget Paris as a Nancy boy. And there's all about a conversation about the DSM classification of homosexuality. And he's a person, we're made to believe that he's a person that likes musical theater but wasn't allowed to embrace it. There's reference to Oklahoma, the end of the film, where he's, I believe, fantasizing himself performing the song from Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. Just about how you would imagine if you could imagine you could perform your favorite song and how it would look and if it could be the way you wanted it to be and everybody watching you.
Okay.
It's a film about perceptions and perspectives. That's what I think.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know. There's that scene where they suffer the blizzards he references, and I've never heard of this author referenced in a film before, which I, of course, geeked out on, was because he keeps asking, have you read this? Have you read that? And he's like, have you read Anna Kavan's Ice? And Kavan is kind of referred to as the sister of Kafka. And if you have any time, I recommend looking up Anna Kavan, and she's a woman that wrote like some domestic drama. She was married under her real name. She has a nervous breakdown, goes into a sanatorium, comes out, changes her name, becomes Ice Cold Peroxide Blonde, and writes another series of novels that end up having a cult following, which get her the attention she desires in the literary world. And Ice is all about an apocalyptic universe where it's kind of an eco-feminist horror narrative where this man is chasing down this waifish woman that he loves but does not love him, which I think is another key into what Kaufman is trying to do. I don't know. I was reminded of so many things that aren't even referenced in here. Proust. This feels like a Kurt Vonnegut short story. Who Am I This Time? Anyway, I liked this film. That said, it isn't probably as exciting a viewing experience for many.
Okay.
As probably will be talking about it. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, what's your next note?
No, I mean, I think you said enough. I wanted to try to explain the film, like what is it talking about?
Well, I think that's what this is, an art house film that's exciting in the fact that you could talk about so many small things going on within it, and relate it back to its grander schemes.
Yeah. What would you give it?
We have to talk about the look too. It was lensed by Łukasz Żal, who's a Polish cinematographer. He did Paweł Pawlikowski's Ida and Cold War, and also a Russian film from Alexei German Jr. I love the look of, called Dovlatov. I would give it 4 out of 5 stars. I don't know. There are so many things that I feel like I haven't even been able to touch on, even talking like through this. There's the maggot-infested pigs that end up being voiced by Oliver Platt, who's also the voice on the telephone, that's calling her cryptically.
Mm-hmm. I would give it 4 out of 5 as well.
Okay, good.
Anything else?
I don't know. Is there anything... there's a poem that she reads, that she recites from memory, which is actually... I didn't write the name down. An actual poet, Canadian poet, wrote it, where it's called Bone Dog, which is very sinister and disturbing. The one line I really liked was, "The sun goes up and down like a tired whore." And at the end of that, the Jesse Plemons character's like, "God, it sounds like it's about me." Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I guess that's it then.
All right.
Bye.